Hey, how's it going, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. Hope everybody is doing great. I'm just quickly getting set up here, and hopefully, everyone can see me and hear me okay. And the notifications hopefully went out on LinkedIn. And shout out to everyone tuning in from Facebook, from where else? So, Facebook, YouTube. Where else is everyone tuning in? Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Oh, I got to go live on Instagram as well. There we go. All right, I'm live on Instagram as well. Shout out to everyone on Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. And a very important topic today, folks, because this is something I've been asked pretty frequently from a lot of job seekers. Dean, is there going to be a second wave? Is there going to be a second wave of COVID-19? And if so, Dean, how are we going to prepare for it? What are we going to do to make sure that we're able to handle it, right? So I'm going to be talking about that today. We got BT Nandu in the house on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for tuning in, BT. Nice to see you here as usual. We got Ayo. Hi, Dean. Hey, Ayo. How's it going? Good to see you here. Appreciate you tuning in. Shout out to everyone on Instagram tuning in. I think Tilak Patel is in the house on Instagram. So thanks for tuning in, Tilak. Appreciate that. Who else is here? And let us know let me know in the comments, folks, who you are, where you're tuning in from, which city you're tuning in from, and what your position or job title is. Great opportunity for everyone to start networking with us with each other, especially here on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, on YouTube if anyone's tuning in from YouTube. And also shout out to everyone on Periscope as well. We got Kanaya. Thanks for tuning in, Kanaya. I appreciate you tuning in and watching. Let me just do something real quick before I start with today's topic. And hey, Tilak, thanks for your comment. Appreciate that. Nice to see you tuning in from Instagram. Appreciate that. So hold on here. So guys, let me know in the comments, what does everyone think about in regards to the a potential second wave coming in? How do you think it's going to affect your job search? I want to hear what everyone's thoughts are on that in the comments. Point of this stream, folks, is not to spread fear or panic or anything of that sort. I just want to give everyone a realistic outlook on some tips that I have for you on how to manage a second wave if it comes in. We got Nitin from Instagram tuned in. Good morning, Nitin. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you watching. And let me know in the comments, guys. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on how things are going to unfold if we are indeed hit with a second wave. We got more people tuning in here. We got Magwesh. Hey, Magwesh, thanks for tuning in. We got Dwayne. Hey, Dwayne, nice to see you here. Appreciate you tuning in all the way from Fort Worth, Texas. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, Dwayne. Appreciate that. Jitendra, how's it going? We got Hema from Mississauga. Thanks for tuning in, Hema. And Kanaya is from India, all the way from India. Wow, Salesforce developer. Awesome. Sounds good. So Nitin says on Instagram, I'm a recruiter, been laid off from work. Pretty hard to find a recruiter position again as I feel hirings are frozen. Yeah, I agree, Nitin. It is tough on recruiters right now. So totally understand that. But hope I'm able to help you out with my job search tip. Jess is here. Hey, Jess, nice to see you here. Appreciate you tuning in from Instagram. So Marcus has a bit. So Marcus, I'll get to your comment shortly. So we got Nazanin tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, Nazanin, and we got Remy tuning in as well. Awesome, sounds good. So yeah, folks, feel free to network in the comments. Right, great opportunity for everyone to network, get to know each other, expand your network, especially over here in LinkedIn, as well as everyone else tuning in from Facebook, from YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope as well. So. Quick heads up also for those of you who are job seekers, I'm going to be joining live alongside Gurpreet on her account. That's Gurpreet Kaiman. She was my guest yesterday. I'm going to be a guest on her show today afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern time zone. So if you want more job search tips, more job search topics, and more job search discussions, feel free to tune into that show. It's going to be on her account, so make sure you tune in with her. All right. So without further ado. So I'm going to get to Marcus's comment. I think Marcus had a lot to say. So Marcus says, why are professionals asking an IT industry recruiter if there will be a second wave of SARS-CoV-2 infection? The only way to get an answer is speaking to infectious disease medical professionals who aren't in politically appointed positions. I'm not convinced there will be a medical second wave. I do expect a second wave of government response weirdness. All right. Appreciate you sharing your comment, Marcus. So we got Martins from Nigeria. Thanks for tuning in, Martin. And Marcus says, by the way, hi Dean. All right, awesome, sounds good, Marcus. Good to see you here. So, folks, look, people have been asking me, Dean, what's going to happen if we're hit with a second wave of COVID? Is there going to be a second hit? But yeah, I mean, just like Marcus kind of said, folks, I'm not a medical professional, right? Like, I don't know what's going on, with this whole pandemic and stuff like that. Frankly, myself, I don't even watch the news. All right. And some people say, hey, Dean, that's kind of ignorant. Like, you should be watching the news and knowing what's going on out there. Well, here's the deal, folks. It's the media is always, pushing out some kind of negativity anyway. So for a few years now, I don't even watch the news. If I want to know what's going on in the world, I look into what's going on in the recruitment industry. I look at the job statistics, right? I look at business stuff, and that kind of thing. Very, very special stuff, specific stuff, right? I don't want to hear all the negativity and stuff. So first and foremost, I definitely agree with Marcus. I can't really predict what's going to happen with the pandemic itself. Because again, I'm a recruiter and I'm talking about job search topics. That's my perspective. But that being said, if your question is how is this going to impact the job market, how is this going to impact us as job seekers? Well, that's where I can give my input, right? And on Instagram, Jess says facts. Yeah, awesome, sounds good. Thanks so much, Jess. And so I have a few tips for all of you folks, right? So I have 4 tips on if there is a second wave. And again, I can't predict. I'm not sure if there's going to be a second wave. I don't know if when it's going to come or anything like that. I can't guarantee. I don't know anything about none of that, folks, right? And I'm not claiming that I do know if and when something is going to happen again. But I do know this, folks. How are you going to adapt as a job seeker? How are we, all of us, going to adapt as job seekers, right? That's what I want everyone to start really, thinking about and preparing for in the case that, this or anything else for that matter that might occur. Everyone needs to be prepared, right? And I kind of discussed this in my ebook, which I released a couple of months back, and it was called 4 Mindset Shifts for a Hostile Job Market. And tip number 1 that I have for where's my notes? Sorry, my apologies. Wrong notes there. But yeah, so tip number 1 that I have for all of you is, look, number 1 is stop stressing over, folks, things that are beyond your control. Right? A lot of people are freaking out and panicking over things that are beyond their control. Whether or not this pandemic's going to hit, how many people are going to get affected, the spread and, all this stuff and social distancing. I don't know about you guys, but I have no control over that stuff. I do not have control over that. Maybe I might have control on an individual level. I can do I can wash my hands. I can wear the mask. I can avoid the, large groups. I can do social distancing. That's the degree to which I have control. So that's what I'm going to focus on, the things that I do have control over, folks. So those of you who are watching the news day in and day out, you're sitting there in front of the TV, you're just soaking in all this panic that the media spreads and continues to spread, even when there wasn't any pandemic, folks, right? Realistically, I mean, let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Even when there's no pandemic, when there's nothing going on, the media is always trying to, put us into panic mode about something or the other, right? So that being said, tip number 1 is focus on what you do have control over, folks. You don't have control over, whether or not a second wave is going to hit. But what you do have control over is washing your hands, putting a face mask if you want to put the face mask on, or if that's the law in your local city or country. You have control over the social distancing thing. You have control over who you interact with, where you go. Now, from a job search perspective, this very much applies to the job search. A lot of people, reach out to me. They're concerned about their job search and all these various things that they might not have control over, right? There are certain things in the job search, folks, you might not have control over, right? You might not have control over what happens beyond the interview stage, right? What happens after you leave the interview? You might not have any influence over the conversations that take place when you're not present, right? The hiring team, what they talk about you, their feedback to the recruiter point of contact. If you're being represented by a recruiter, you might not have control over that. You might not have control over company budgets. You might not have control over companies doing layoffs and terminations and furloughs and all that stuff. So why bother stressing out over stuff you have no control over, folks? So what do you have control over? That's what I want everyone to put in the comments. Now, here's a few things that I know you do have control over, folks. Number 1, you have control over your attitude. Your attitude is something you do have control over, right? Despite the circumstances, despite your situation, you can make a conscious choice in thinking more positively and looking at the brighter side of things and taking actions that are going to contribute to your well-being and putting you in a more positive state and whatever it is related to your job search, right? So attitude, definitely something that you have control over. What's another thing you have control over? You have control over your resume, right? Something very simple. Let's keep it very simple at this point. What do you have control of, folks? You have control over your resume. What you're writing, how you're presenting your resume, your template, your the way you're describing your accomplishments, your achievements, each of your positions, your projects, and all of that stuff. So you might not have control over the fact that no organizations are responding to your application, right? A lot of people are experiencing that. A lot of everyday job seekers reach out to me. They're like, Dean, no one's responding to my application. The fact that no one's responding to your application might be beyond your control. But what do you have control over, folks? You have control over your resume. And your resume is what you're presenting to these organizations, to these companies, to these hiring teams, to these recruiters, right? So your resume is something in that equation, right? In that equation of applying for a role and not getting a response, within that equation, what aspects do you have control over? You have control over your resume, what the content within your resume and what you're writing in your resume. And you have control over number two is, I lost my train of thought. Number two was very important that I had in mind just now. And number two is what kind of roles you're applying to and who your point of contact is, like in terms of who you're reaching out to about whatever position you're interested in. Those are the aspects you do have control over. How you communicate on the phone, right? You get a pre-screening phone call. You might not have control over who the other person is on the other line, what their job is, what their role is, their thoughts in their mind. You might have very little control over that. But what you do have control over is how you communicate, how you convey your value, how you discuss your background experience, and all these things. So look, I'm not going to go over the whole list of each and everything that you have control over, folks. But let me know in the comments. I want to know, everyone, let's get some interaction here, right? Put it in the comments. Let me know. What aspects of the job search do you have control over right now? What aspects do you have control over, right? Put it in the comments. Let me know, because I'm very interested in hearing and making sure everyone has this understanding, because this is very important. There's a reason why I made this the number one tip. Focus on what you do have control over, folks. Focusing on those things you have that's beyond our control, it's only going to freak all of us out. It happens to me. I'm not immune to this either myself. The moment I start thinking about these things like that I have no control over, I get stressed out. I get a little bit of anxiety, which eventually grows into greater levels of anxiety, right? Because I'm only thinking about what I don't have control over. And what does that do? That makes me feel that I have very little control over my circumstances, my goals, my outcomes, what I want to achieve in life, my dreams, my ambitions, and all that stuff. So tip number one, guys, do not stop focusing on things you don't have control over. I want you to put your focus on those things you do have control over. And even those things you don't have control over, look at how within, whatever that thing is that you don't have control over, which aspects do you have control over, right? You do have control over. Which aspects of that thing do you have control over? So focus on those aspects, right? So that's my tip number one. And yeah, let me know in the comments. Like I give resume as a tip, how you communicate on the phone as something you have control over. What else do you have control over? Put it in the comments. You guys are way too quiet today on LinkedIn. I'm not sure what's going on. So I don't know if the full notification even went out. But I want to see some interaction in the comments, folks. I'm giving my 100%. I want 100% back from everyone else. So let me know in the comments. And also, if you find this useful so far, make sure you like, share, and comment so that other people can benefit from the information. So tip number one was, don't focus on what you don't have control over. Focus on what you do have control over. Now, tip number two is, folks, you need to observe what's going on in the marketplace, right? You need to observe what's going on in the marketplace. Now, I know I did say just a few minutes ago, avoid, the negativity on the news and the media and all that stuff. But that does not mean you should ignore what's going on in the marketplace, folks, because you need to face and confront the reality, right? That certain things that are going on in the world will affect the marketplace, will affect consumer demand, will affect organizations' hiring and recruitment practices and their decisions and all of that stuff. Right. So before I go, I see a few great comments here. So BT says, absolutely right. Let's not waste our energy on what we don't have control over. Rather put our energy on networking and resume building. Yeah, absolutely. So great tips right there, BT. Great examples there. Jitendra says, don't feel helpless when recruitment team doesn't respond after completing 1 hour video call interview. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic there, Jitendra, or I'm not sure if that's a tip, or I'm not sure what that is. But in any case, thanks for your comment. Appreciate you tuning in and your interaction. I always appreciate that. Sunil says, engage constructively on LinkedIn, relevant to your role and value proposition. Yeah, so that's a great example of something you do have focus on, right? And that you do have control over. So definitely do that. Great comment there, Sunil. Appreciate that. We got AO who says, I would rather focus on improving myself, my resume, etc. Focusing what I don't have control over is a waste of time and energy. AO, well said. I definitely agree with that. That's my viewpoint as well. And great advice there, right? Put your focus on improving yourself, your resume. Focus on those things you do have control over, folks. Stressing over what's beyond your control is just, it's going to add to the stress and anxiety. So great comments there. Appreciate that, IO. So going on to tip number 2, folks. So you're focusing on the things you do have control over. What you next need to do is you definitely need to confront what's going on in the marketplace. So if a second wave does happen or not happen, I'm not claiming that one is going to happen or not going to happen. Whatever does happen, folks, there could be so many different things. Maybe the squirrels they mutate, they start taking over Toronto. Who knows? Maybe it's a situation like that. What are you going to do, right? Same principles. So tip number 2 is observe what's going on in the marketplace. Where is the consumer demand going, right? Where's all the investments and the money flowing? That's what you need to do. That's what you need to focus on. In terms of the second tip is observe and confront what's going on in the marketplace, folks. Like, you need to see what's happening in the marketplace, right? Because when these various situations happens, the marketplace responds. It transforms. It adapts. It changes, and a whole bunch of things go on, right? So, for example, when this whole thing hit, which brings me to tip number 3, is you got to see like where. Well, actually, not tip number 3. Sorry, no, we're still on tip number 2. But where's the demand going? Where's all the investments and money going? Right? Like, for example, when this whole pandemic thing first hit, teleconferencing, right? Zoom, all these video platforms, sudden spike in popularity, right? Then there was and also logistics, right? E-learning, logistics, IT infrastructure, cybersecurity. All these areas like experienced like a boom, right? Pretty much, because suddenly these areas, although they were important before, they became even more important because companies, organizations, people, individuals had to adapt to the new environment we're in, right? Everyone had to go work from home. So we got a whole bunch of organizations that are, some of them doing these transformations where they didn't have the infrastructure in place. They had to make that adjustment, to make those investments. So investment was going into that. Next, what they got to do, they got to secure those environments because now people are working from home. So, possibly dealing with very confidential and private and secure information. They got to secure that information, right? So cybersecurity became extremely important. Like, although it was before, even more so, right? And now, how do you communicate with your employees, right? That was what organizations were next dealing with. How do you communicate with the employees? How do we keep everyone engaged? So video Zoom just shut up. Like, I'm sure everyone's seen that graphic that's been good. That was going around on the internet back when this pandemic first hit, in regards to Zoom's popularity, and it just shut up, right? It just shut up, like way up there. So this is, and I'm just giving some basic examples, folks, of why you need to observe the marketplace, what's going on in the marketplace, because it's going to show you where the demand is going. Because demand might be decreasing in some parts of the marketplace. Like, now, obviously, an example of that was retail when this thing first hit, as well as retail, the restaurant industry. I can't think of any other examples, but obviously there were some industries that were really hit hard. But then there was investments going into other parts of the market, right, where there was actually an increase in demand, and in fact, those companies are hiring, and they're experiencing this demand that they can't even, in some cases, they can't even keep up with. I mean, look at Amazon, right? Perfect. I mean, that's a large scale company. I mean, they were doing well, regardless, even before. But with everyone shifting, towards e-commerce and transacting online, Amazon just, I mean, huge opportunities there, right? Like you see them, pumping out new positions, new roles, new opportunities all the time. So this brings me to tip number 3, right? So tip number 2 was you got to see what's going on in the marketplace. Where's the money going? Where's the investments going? How is the marketplace changing? What shifts are organizations, industries, and all these places? What are they doing, right, in response to the circumstances, to the environment? So that's where you need to focus your attention on, right? Which brings me to tip number 3 is you want to focus your job search, folks, on those areas of the market where there is an increase in demand or a sustained level of demand. Because you chasing after positions and opportunities that might not have any, that might be decimated, that might be, severely affected by whatever the circumstances are, you continuing to pursue those industries might not make sense. It's not efficient and effective use of your time. What you need to be doing rather is seeing where going back to tip number 2, seeing where the market demand is, where's the market shifting, right? And the next thing you need to do is you need to then figure out, like, okay, that's where the market demand is going now. What opportunities exist within this domain, within this industry, or within my field that I can really be a potential good fit for, right? So this is where you got to take a look at, okay, which industries does it make sense for me to actually apply for, and explore, and see what's going on, right? So this is where you got to use that market research and what's going on in the marketplace, and then figure out, okay, what can I do, like what areas can I really apply for roles, given that there is investment, there's money, there's demand going into these particular industries or these particular sectors. So that's what you need to be doing, folks, right? And bringing me to tip number 4. Look, the good thing is, and again, I want to leave this with a positive note, right? The good thing is that when this whole pandemic thing hit, like, most organizations have adapted, right? The ones that are surviving, that are sustaining, that are operating, that are that are actually in business, and things are now going back to normal, at least gradually. They're already adapted to this new situation, folks. So as long as it's an industry that has demand, they still have they've adapted their infrastructure, they're able to have everyone work remotely. If it does come to another wave of this, and people having to again go back to work from home, worst case scenario, I'm not trying to spread any panic here, but if it did come down to that, most organizations are prepared for it, right? So it's going to be, their major concern won't be like, how do we stay in operation, how do we stay in business, because again, most businesses have adapted to it. So they would be able to continue doing business, operating, and continuing with their recruitment plans, right? So that's what all of you guys need to take a look at. And tip number 4 is, and all of you need to understand is, most organizations are prepared because they're already adapted to when this happened, when it first came out. And if something does happen again, they're going to be well prepared to deal with it and continue their operations and continue with their recruitment plans and in regards to that aspect of things. So look, if this information was helpful, make sure you hit like, and make sure you share and comment as well, folks. Appreciate any likes and shares and comments. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions. So AO shared some great information. So AO says opportunities are increasing in these areas: cloud computing, solution architecture, artificial intelligence, robotics, process automation. Yeah, great examples, AO. So look, folks, what AO is saying is, look, there's still opportunities out there, right? Don't focus on just the negative. Don't focus on if something happens and this and that. There are opportunities out there. You just got to look where the demand is. Where's the market demand? And which skill sets, which fields are gonna help enhance and create the demand or increase demand for these skill sets, right? So great comment, I completely agree with you. So with that being said, folks, I'm gonna open up the floor to any job search questions that you have that might be on your mind. It doesn't have to be related to today's topic. Any questions you have related to the job search, resume tips, interview tips, any of that stuff, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. We got a comment here from Tilak on Instagram. So Tilak says, I'm not getting any reply even if I prepare my resume according to the requirements. Yeah, so that's a common that's a common barrier a lot of people are facing, Tilak. So it depends. So it's one thing to prepare your resume according to the requirements, right? Now the next thing, Tilak, you got to look into is, are you communicating your value and what you can do for the organization? A lot of job seekers, what they do is they focus on what they've done, right? Like the tasks, the duties, the responsibilities, which is great. But are you showing your results, your outcomes, what you can potentially do for future organizations or potential organizations? So if you're not communicating that on the resume, might not capture attention, right? Everyone talks about how do you beat the ATS? How do I beat the ATS? No one talks about the second component, folks. And the second component is, how do I beat the ATS? And the second component is, how do I get the attention of someone who's actually reading my resume and my resume comes up in the ATS search results? How do I get the attention of the person who's going to be reading the resume? Because ultimately, folks, it's going to be a human being that's going to be reviewing those resumes that come up in their ATS search that they're going to be looking into, right? Nobody talks about that second part. How do you get the attention of the person who's reading your resume? So my advice to you, Tilak, focus on not just what you did, but also results, right? Results, ROI, achievements, and results that you achieved. That's what's going to help you stand out from everyone else that might be presenting their resume. and get the attention of the person that's reading your resume. By the way, we do a deep dive on this on the current boot camp that I'm collaborating on with Gurpreet came on. And the next boot camp session is starting September 17th. It's for IT professionals in the US or Canada. It's a full end-to-end boot camp, folks. We're actually extending it to 6 weeks, and everything from resume creation, creating the resume, creating a compelling resume, all the way through to offer negotiation and salary negotiation and all that stuff as well. So anyone interested, feel free to send me a direct message. I'll be happy to provide you more information. Again, next session starts September 17th. It is a paid group coaching program, so if you're interested, feel free to let me know. So Dwayne says lots of free training online as well. Yeah, absolutely, Dwayne, and all offer free online certification courses. Yeah, so Dwayne, you bring up a good point. So folks, there's definitely a lot of free training and free courses and free certifications online. So definitely make use of that. But make sure you do your due diligence, folks. Make sure these are credible organizations or credible places, and make sure it's information that is applicable to you and that makes sense. But not only that, also, is it going to count when you're actually applying for roles? Is it going to really mean anything? Is it going to be a certification or a training or program that organizations in general, at least, are going to recognize and acknowledge? So make sure you do your due diligence. But yeah, definitely, Dwayne, agree with you. There's a lot of resources out there. So make sure you look into that, folks. Definitely a lot of great information and great resources out there. Tilak on Instagram says, thank you for the advice, Dean. Hey, no worries, Tilak. Appreciate you tuning in. So I don't see any other questions or comments. So I'm not sure if the notifications even went out today. I don't see much comments today. So I'm going to assume no one has any more questions or comments in relation to the job search. So that being said, folks, thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm going to close it off now, and appreciate everyone tuning in and hope this information was helpful. And again, folks, stay positive. You need to examine. Again, I'm going to go over the 4 tips real quick. Again, number 1, focus on what you do have control over. Don't stress over the things you don't have control over. What do you have control over? You have control over your resume. You have control over how you spend your day, and you have control over how you're approaching your job search. You have control over how you communicate with recruiters, with hiring managers, and all these people. So focus on what you do have control over, right? Tip number 2, observe what is going on in the marketplace. See where the demand is. See where the market is shifting, right? Where's the money and the investment flowing? That's what you need to pay attention to. Tip number 3, right? Based on tip number 2, you need to look at, okay, which industries are experiencing an increase in demand, which industries are getting investments in money, and they're experiencing demand in response to changing consumer whatever preferences and all that stuff. That's where you need to look for the roles, the positions, and the opportunities, folks, because that's where, if the money is flowing to these industries and these areas, chances are they probably have an increase in demand for their services, their products, and their solutions, and ultimately they might be definitely be in hire mode, right? Because they got to keep up with the demand. So they need to hire people to help them out with that stuff. And it could be your skill set. They might be looking for your skill set. So make sure you do that. And so tip number 3, again, focus on those industries where there is demand, where the demand, the money, the investment is flowing. Those are the industries you want to focus your job search on to make most effective use of your time. And tip number 4 is, look, don't panic, folks. Don't stress out. Don't panic. Most organizations have adapted to this new environment we're in, this new work situation, the work from home thing, and all this stuff. So most organizations will be adapted, and most organizations will be able to continue their recruitment plans, given that there's a demand for their products, their services, and solutions. So folks, to close it off, be positive, stay positive. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on what you do have control over, and keep taking action, folks. All right. So, and for those of you tuning in for the first time, appreciate you tuning in. And I do this live stream every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. So mark your calendar. Make sure you tune in. Every week, Wednesdays, 11 a.m., I talk about a whatever job search topic, and then I open it up to questions. For whatever reason, not much questions here today, so I'm not sure if the LinkedIn notification went out. But in any case, thank you so much for those of you who tuned in. Shout out to everyone on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and shout out to everyone on Instagram as well. Thanks so much, everyone, and hope everyone has a great day. I appreciate your feedback, Ayo, and thanks for tuning in. Have a good one, everyone, and everyone stay safe. See ya.